Good day, my name is Stephanie Paris, and today I'm going to talk all about the Mendelian and non-Mendelian inheritance. Mendelian inheritance refers to patterns of inheritance that are characteristic of organisms that reproduce sexually. Genotype and Phenotype. Genotype refers to exact pairing of alleles. Example, big R, and big R, letter R, and letter R, letter R. Phenotype refers to the expression of the trait. Example, red and white. Dominant traits shown with capital letters and controlling trait. Example, curly hair over straight hair. Recessive traits shown with lowercase letters. Hidden allele. Example, cystic fibrosis and Tay Sachs. Heterozygous refers to having inherited different forms of a particular gene from each parent. A heterozygous genotype stands in contrast to a homozygous genotype, where an individual inherits identical forms of a particular gene from each parent. Inheritance can be predicted using Punnett square. Punnett square is a method for visualizing combination of gametes in a cross. Punnett square allows prediction of the percentage of phenotypes in the offspring of a cross from known genotypes. There are three Mendel's law of inheritance. First is the law of dominance, second is the law of segregation, and the third is the law of independent assortment. Law of dominance states that in a heterozygote, one trait will conceal the presence of another trait for the same characteristic, rather than both alleles contributing to a phenotype. The dominant allele will be expressed exclusively. This is an example of law of dominance. The first cherry is homozygous for the yellow allele. The third cherry is heterozygous, meaning it has one red allele and one yellow allele. Since this cherry is red, the law of dominance would say that the red allele is dominant because only this allele produces a phenotype in heterozygous. The second one is law of segregation. Mendel's law of segregation states that a diploid organism passes a randomly selected allele for a trait to its offspring, such that the offspring receives one allele from each parent. In this imaginary lumpy species, the gene for big L is dominant to the gene little l. Two heterozygous lumpies with genotype big L and little l mate and have children. And the third one is the law of independent assortment. Mendel's law of independent assortment states that the alleles of two or more different genes get sorted into gametes independently of one another. As you can see, the law of independent assortment takes place as maternal and paternal sources of DNA are randomly divided. Sometimes, the gamete inherits the maternal version of a gene, and sometimes it inherits the paternal version. Which version it gets is completely random based on the order that these chromosomes line up in during the first stage of meiosis. And non-Mendelian inheritance is any pattern of inheritance in which traits do not segregate in accordance with Mendel's law. Incomplete dominance. It refers to a circumstance in which the two copies of a gene for a particular trait or alleles combine so that neither dominates the other. Neither allele is dominant. When an organism is heterozygous for a trait, it will show a third phenotype. The third phenotype is a blend of the other two. In this example, the letter A represents gene, big R and Y represent the different alleles. Codominance is a relationship between two versions of a gene. Individuals receive one version of a gene called an allele from each parent. If the alleles are different, the dominant allele usually will be expressed while the effect of the other allele, called recessive, is masked. Take a look at this picture. We have a homozygous bluebird and a homozygous whitebird. The offspring is heterozygous but has the blue and white feathers. Neither allele is truly dominant, and the result is an entirely different phenotypes. Polygenic inheritance occurs when one characteristic is controlled by two or more genes. Often the genes are large in quantity but small in effect. Example of polygenic inheritance. Skin color is an example of this. This trait is determined by at least three genes are also thought to influence skin color. Skin color is determined by the amount of the dark color pigment melanin in the skin. The genes that determine skin color have two alleles each and are found on different chromosomes. Multiple alleles. Multiple alleles are three or more possible alleles for one individual trait. In domestic cats, breeding has taken place for thousands of years, selecting for different and varied coat colors. Cats can be seen with long hair, short hair, and no hair. There are genes that code for whether or not a cat will have hair. There are multiple alleles for this gene, some that produce hairless cats and some that cats with hair. Another gene regulates the length of the hair. Long-haired cats have two recessive alleles, while a dominant allele will produce short hair. Cryotropy occurs when one gene influences two or more seemingly unrelated phenotypic traits. An example of pleiotropy that occurs in humans is sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disorder results from the development of the abnormally shaped red blood cells. Normal red blood cells have a biconcave disc-like shape and contain enormous amount of a protein called hemoglobin. And the genetic linkage describes the way in which two genes that are located close to each other on a chromosome are often inherited together. Some combination of wing shape and body color are inherited together. Fruit flies that have brown bodies are more likely to have normal wings, while fruit flies that have black bodies are more likely to have vestigial wings. And extranuclear inheritance or cytoplasmic inheritance is the transmission of genes that occur outside the nucleus. Certain experimental evidences suggest the occurrence of certain extranuclear genes or DNA molecules in the cytoplasm of many prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. For example, mitochondria chloroplasts have their own DNA and reproduce on their own inside each cell. And that's all. Thank you and God bless.